Just some quick thoughts on episode 86 here, if you follow All In podcast. Deep sigh because saw the jobs report come out. Actually, I'm not even sure it's out. I saw a headline this morning that said it was stronger than expected, and I wasn't surprised by that because I feel we get this news and then 30 days later things get revised and it's not what we thought it was. But I own a company that does something called outplacement. And outplacement is a service you get when a company lets you go, lays you off, downsizes, fires you, whatever. Many companies choose to give their employees outplacement services to help them transition to a new job or career faster. It's a soft landing, basically. So usually we are the leading indicator of what's coming down the pipeline for layoffs. You can also do something similar and look up warn notices in Google. Set a not a reminder, what are they? An alert. Set up an alert in Google, and you can track how many warn notices are. Warn notices is what larger companies have to give the public when they're planning on laying off a certain amount of people or more. So when you see an uptick in warn notices, that's another leading indicator. So what I've seen is a dramatic increase in our outplacement business in the last 30 to 45 days, maybe 2 months. Last 2 weeks, things are booming right now, right? We're getting a lot of calls for outplacement. Old customers are coming back. Individuals who just got let go but have money from their employer for outplacement services are coming to us. Significant increase in layoffs right now. But not reflected in the job report somehow. And maybe this is just going to be a lag where we're not going to see this show up for another 30 or 60 days in the news. But as I was listening to the pod here, it's I feel like they see it coming. They know it's coming. We just as a whole don't know how bad it's going to be. It's just a lot of times it's what you're experiencing in real life is just not what you see on CNBC right now. They'll tell you like something's wrong now, and then 60 days later you'll find out you're right. But that's how the world is. So definitely concern on my side that we are just always behind. We're like 2 3 months behind what's really going on. Such as we're going to find out we probably were in a technical recession for the first half of the year. And if you jump on YouTube, you can find just about every economist, analyst, PhD, the Fed, talking about how strong the economy is, and we won't see a recession until 2023 or later. And it's like, well, we've been in a technical recession, right, for 6 months already. That's just how far behind we are. We think we're very smart, and we got this data. We're data driven. We got analytics. We got all the big brain people, but the big brain people are always 6 months behind, right? So I see it on my side because it's a business I run, and I know it's like I survived 2000 crash, right? I've been through the 2008 crash, running businesses. Made it through COVID, the third, recession I had to run companies through, 2 decades. You see the signs coming. Doesn't mean it's going to 100% happen. But for us, the writing's on the wall when you see outplacement services go up 100 or 200% in 45 days. Um, maybe that's the tip of the iceberg, and maybe it's just a knee-jerk reaction. We'll find out. But as of right now, I definitely see it. I don't care what the job report says. I'm making money when people get laid off, and that tells me a little more truth than whatever I'm reading on Bloomberg. So they covered that topic. Something interesting, not interesting, but something we've been talking about for quite a while now is was it Sachs was talking about San Francisco's real estate, and they're going to be looking at up to a 40% vacancy rate on the commercial side. Because what I was telling people, I got lucky, for some of my companies. One of my big leases came up. It was a 5 or 7 year lease. It was a big lease. I had a half a floor of a very large office building. But that lease was up right around when COVID started. And, we didn't renew it. We did the work from home, and then we started to use more of the WeWork type spaces to get people together and do training. That's kind of the mode we're in right now. It's I don't want to go sign up. If you have never done commercial real estate, for big office buildings, like 5 years, probably minimum commitment. They're usually looking at 7. If you go in the big cities, if I get another lease in Chicago, it's like 10 years. And if you got, let's just say, 150,000 a month, you know, a month, by the way, 150,000 a month, and then you do that over 10 years, how much money you're on the hook for. I'm not doing that right now. I'm going to sit tight and see what happens with COVID, look at some of the smaller office spaces, do a hybrid work environment, and we're going to go from there. But that's the thing about commercial real estate is people were locked in for, shorter leases, 3 years and 5, 7. Those leases are starting to roll over now. We're into COVID 2 or 3 years, and those 3, 5, 7 year leases are starting to come up, and people aren't renewing them. It's, you only need half the office space. You have the office coming in, 50% of the people come in on Mondays and Wednesday. The other 50% come in on Tuesday and Thursday, and then whoever wants to come in on Friday if they want to. You only need 50% of the office space now. Plus, we're doing more work from home, work from anywhere, technically. Commercial real estate is getting hammered. And Sachs made a good point. If you don't know commercial real estate, if you're negotiating a commercial real estate lease, there's just a floor on what they're willing to take in terms of price per square foot. You see an office space that's got, you think you're going to get a deal, right? I see an office space that's got 30% vacancy, and you're like, well, I'm going to go in and lowball them because, they'd rather have some of my money than have no money. They got to fill this office space up, and you think they're desperate, and maybe they are, but there's a certain floor that the bank won't allow them to lease it below. So let's just say, throw a number out there, I want to go in and offer someone $17 a foot. And, the landlord might go, yeah, I would like to take that. They got to go back to the bank because most of this commercial real estate is all leveraged, right? They all got debt. People don't own, not saying some don't. A lot of people don't own these massive 100, 200, 300, 400, $500 million buildings outright. They're all leveraged. They got to go back to the bank and say, well, the bank knows that you got to get at least $20 a foot, or there's no way you're gonna be able to pay for this building leasing that low. It's going to be in a continual loss. You're going to be in default. So, you think you're going to get a deal, but they can't even cut you a deal because the banks are really controlling the stuff. And the bank's going to go, look, if you can't get $20 a foot, you can't lease it. And that's just one of those things right now where there's not going to be great deals on commercial real estate unless it's a smaller building, smaller tenant. We might be able to go get a deal like something like that. Now, you got 40% vacancy, and people don't want to pay your rates because there's a whole, glut of space out there. What happens when all the commercial real estate starts going bankrupt and people start walking away from these large buildings? Are we looking at a major crisis in the commercial real estate market? And if you look at how much money is tied up in commercial real estate and commercial real estate debt, it will make your head spin. But people thought that, hey, we got through COVID, it's going to be okay. The thing is, most people during COVID still had, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years left on their leases. Every year that goes by, those leases expire, and people aren't going to renew them, or they're going to renew them for like half the space. So Sachs had a good point there that you don't really see people talking about that. Occasionally you hear like an analyst or somebody on CNBC talk about what's going on in the commercial real estate and how that's a really big concern and a whole thing that could blow up coming down the pipeline. They had the same concern in 2008, if you remember, but not as much. It didn't, we had 10% unemployment or something, but 90% of people were still employed and they were going to the office. So there was a concern, but not like now because people don't go to the office. And then downtown areas are dying because people don't go to the office, and then those restaurants and the dry cleaners and everyone in that retail, everyone suffers. So there's a big shift going on there. So, you factor in, again, it's always a lag. You have to keep this in mind. It's many people are early because they see what's coming. It just never happens as fast as you think it's going to. People who were shorting stocks and doing all this stuff, They knew things weren't right. They knew that we're putting us in bad shape. It just takes a while before it falls apart. And sometimes it falls apart slow, and sometimes it unravels faster than you could ever imagine. 2008, for example. You can go back 30 days before the big crash or before Lehman, and you'll have countless people on television, PhDs, The Economist, professors, all saying the economy is strong. Hell, probably even the Fed on a couple videos. How strong the economy is, we're in good shape, blah, blah, blah. And 30 days later, the world is falling apart. Things can fall apart that fast. So, right now, the question is, are we going to fall apart fast? Is it going to unravel quickly? Or is this going to be a slow grind to the bottom? We're going to find out. Anyway, so looking at commercial real estate and, the layoffs, we went back to my original point on this podcast. There's a lot of companies out there that, I'm not going to name any names, but there was a huge boom in the stock market and IPOs. There's a lot of companies we just didn't need. And you find out during boom times, everyone does good. But they weren't really making any profit, right? And now that we got to make profit because the money's running out, those companies are starting to dwindle or go under. You might see bankruptcies. They weren't really viable companies in the long run. In fact, if we didn't have so much money in the system, many people would probably say they weren't really even investable companies to begin with. So you're going to see those things crash. That's going to suck a lot of money out of the market. Those people will return to the market, and some other company may or may not soak them up. But that's where you're going to see this whole 2-to-1 job opening thing get crushed. I have a feeling that's going to fall really fast. Now, let's parlay that conversation into something else that they were talking about on episode 86 here, is people, I forgot which one of the besties said, but that jobs weren't paying enough for people to return to the workforce. So again, the company that I have that does outplacement also does career services in general. We do college planning, career coaching, all that stuff. It's just careers and jobs all day long, for 20 years. There's something that I've learned. The people who are trying to get somewhere, they're always going to try to get somewhere. They're going to work hard. They're going to make sacrifices. They're going to invest in themselves. They're going to keep getting educated, buying books. Can't stop those people, right? They're always on the grind. They're going to win no matter what. But we have seen a great shift in society as a whole where people have found nobility in either struggle or nobility in just getting by. The work-life balance and do what you love. And if I can't do what I love, or if I can't do what I have a passion for, then I don't want to work at all. And I think that's where we're kind of in a pinch right now, where I grew up, and we didn't have much money growing up. The one thing I learned is most people, at least where I came from, when given the option to just struggle and get by, or having to work 40 hours or 50 hours a week to have a little bit more, they'll just struggle and get by. If they can make it through the month and have $1 left over and not have to do a tremendous amount of work, that is often the choice. And, it's one of those things. My example is you can work 30 hours a week and make $2,500, or work 10 more hours a week and make $4,000. Where I came from and what I'm seeing right now is most people would just choose to work the 30 hours a week and make the $2,500. They wouldn't put in the extra work. And we're not talking about going from like 40 hours to 80 hours. I'm just saying from 25, 30 hours to working 40 hours to make 2,500 to 4,000. They wouldn't do it because if they can get by on the 2,500, then they'll do it. And I think that's where we're at right now. This is why I also believe in the long run, like universal basic income is going to be an issue if it's not done right, if it's not traded for some kind of production and output in society. Because again, where I came from, if you can find enough to get some food in your mouth, everywhere where I came from, everyone smoked and drank. Enough money to get a pack of smokes, get your beer, eat some fast food. That was enough, right? You would just struggle and you would get by. You would maybe do some under the table jobs, get some cash, some hustles, and you just get by. And I think that's what we learned during COVID. As soon as we got that extra money from the fat unemployment, and I could work 10 hours a week doing Uber Eats, or 20 hours a week doing Uber Eats on my own time, on my own schedule, which the pod brought up too. Chamath might have brought that up, where you could kind of work on demand and have more free time and have flexibility. If you can make enough money doing that to just get by, you're going to choose to do that, even if you could take a 40-hour week job and make significantly more money and put yourself in a better position to, help your family or go to college or save money for a home or save for retirement or pay off your debt. People just don't do that anymore. It's about living, and it's all about today. So that's a big concern of mine right now. Is this is a little bit different than the recessions of the past? We used to be a society, or we had a culture where America always worked our way out of it. No matter what the problem is, we would just work, we would build stuff, we would manufacture, we would produce, we'd get a second job or a third job, we would do whatever we had to take to get out of the mess. I don't feel that that's where we're at right now. I think we're at a point where a lot of people in society, not all, but a lot, have shifted towards that finding nobility in struggle or finding nobility in just getting by. Just getting by has been like programmed into people that it's better to live that way than to bust your ass and have crazy work ethic and make sacrifices, because earning money is now bad, which I never thought it was bad for my dad to work 60 hours, 70 hours a week in a steel factory so we could have a car and an apartment and food. He did what he had to do as a single parent to make sure he took care of his child, right? To me, there's nobility in that. I feel like we're just not in that space right now. So if the shit does hit the fan, right, I don't know if we're in a place where we're going to just work and grind and get through this recession, because we're just in such a different place right now. And you're going to see some of these companies pop, and you're going to see some of that workforce go to these other companies that have been short-staffed, sure. But I just don't know if a lot of that other workforce is coming back. If you're, two people in a household and one person's working, and that one person's working just enough to get by, the second person's probably not going to work. If you can, live at home, if you got money from the government or from something else, people will just find a way to get by. And again, you can just, drive Uber a little bit here. You can do DoorDash. You can do these gig jobs. None of them are this like pay for your health insurance and all this other stuff that you need to kind of have a high quality life, right? Which people will debate, well, what's a high quality life? And it's like, to me, having some money in the bank to not have to worry, and like health insurance and not having a bunch of debt and on some retirement is a decent quality of life. Not rich, not fancy, no nothing, just stability and some security. We're not living that way. They just did I don't know the number off the top of my head. You can Google it. There's a thing that came out on Bloomberg or CNBC that said like 26% of people this year who are attending concerts are going to go into debt to go to the concert. And this is back to, we don't really care about our finances anymore. We care about living. We care about today. Like if you're going to go, do a buy now, pay it later for a concert ticket, or rack up a bunch of money on your credit card for concert tickets. I had people on Instagram, I made a post about that, and they're like, well, I'm doing that. It's, you only live once. And I'm like, have you ever seen what it's like when you're 62 or 65 years old and you got no money in the bank and you're trying to get by on that $1,200 a month from Social Security? I've seen it with my dad's friends, and that my dad would have been one of those people if I didn't have money to help him. It's an ugly way to spend the last 30 of your life. You don't want to go from like 60 to whatever, 70, 80, 90, and just get by and have no money to do nothing in your golden years. Are you going to look back and say, I'm glad I spent $400 on that Drake ticket? I mean, maybe. I don't know if I'm going to be feeling that way at 65 when it's like, my tooth hurts and I got no money to go get it fixed. No one's planning for the future right now. So anyways, just to sum it up, I think layoffs are a lot worse than what the news is telling you, because I'm seeing a massive uptick in layoffs. I don't think we're in a place where we're going to work our way out of a recession right now, which might make this recession even uglier. Without the workforce, we can't make money, and then the companies can't make money, so the companies get in trouble. I just think we're in a really bad position in terms of how we are as a culture right now. And then the commercial thing that Sachs brought up on the commercial real estate, there's like pending doom there, and I'm really curious to see what happens. Hopefully they start converting some of it to residential and they get out of this mess. I don't know. But we've been talking about this for 2 years because, like I said, I was lucky to get out of my lease right when COVID started. And I'm thinking, man, when all these leases start rolling over in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they're not getting renewed, this is going to be a goddamn problem. And you can factor in all the other issues, supply chain issues, a war going on, gas prices, massive inflation, the Fed hiking rates, and it's slowing down the real estate market, which is going to put mortgage bankers out of business, which is going to, realtors aren't going to make as much money. And then the people who had equity in their homes, as those housing prices are going to come down, you're going to find out you didn't have as much equity as you hoped. And if you were planning on tapping that equity line to save your ass during a bad time, well, that equity might not be there. It probably peaked around the end of 2021, early 2022, and now your equity is going to go down, 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 down. So a lot of turmoil ahead. And then another note, like there's been, some drama on the All In podcast, and people were predicting that it's almost over, and the infighting. At the end of this episode, for example, they got into the politics stuff. I don't want to hear the politics stuff. I try to keep politics off the channel unless someone requests it. I'm like in the middle. Like I don't hold a card to anybody. I look at these clowns on both sides of the aisle. I'm like, you work for us. I need you to get stuff done. That's just how I am. Like I don't treat politics like sports teams. There's things that need to get done. I'm not here to be your friend. So if they can keep the politics out of the podcast, I think that would be great for everybody. And I think it would probably stop some of the infighting. You know which way Sachs leans, you know which way J. Cal leans, you know which way Friedberg leans. At times it seems like Chamath does a pretty good job of, sitting on the fence. Other times, leaning one way or the other. It's one of those things that if you're going to do politics, you're automatically going to piss off half the audience. And if you want your podcast to survive, it's like anything. You can't survive when you're constantly pissing off half the people. We don't really want to hear politics. We want to hear about money and investing and startups. Talk a little bit of politics when it's absolutely necessary, when it's geopolitical stuff that is causing issues with, whatever money topic or investing topic or technology topic we're trying to talk about. Just to getting in this batter back and forth about Biden and Trump and blah, blah. Man, I wish someone would just say, look, you look at our last president and our last administration and this administration, and just say, America deserves better. Let's just hope moving forward, we just get something better. And let's not go back and forth. It's the audience doesn't need to be the ping pong ball that J. Cal and Sachs smack back and forth. That's not the ride we're here for. We want to learn about what you think's going on in the economy and money and startups and private equity firms and venture capital firms and tech and Bitcoin and cryptos, and this is the stuff that's really built the podcast up in my mind. Some of the science stuff, definitely cool, like listening to Friedberg on things, global food crisis. So all this stuff that's just far more interesting than the political shuttlecock that's getting smacked back and forth. It's not all that fun. Also probably keeps their own infighting down. So what was anything else? Oh, something about the Dutch. I've seen this pop up. I've not dug into it. The Dutch farmers, like 40,000 is what they said on the show here, were protesting. And I don't really research a whole lot of this stuff. I do feel that, Europe kind of put themselves in a bad spot depending on Russian energy because they're trying to go green so fast. And it sounds like maybe, and I'm very limited knowledge here, maybe that's what's going on with the Dutch. They're trying to push, certain things on the farmers, or they got these agendas that maybe are just happening too fast. And I think we got an issue with that across the world. We want to do everything right now and snap our fingers, but then sometimes that puts us in a very vulnerable position to do that. And I always think that you have to weigh trying to make the world a better place along with your own security of your people. And there's a balance there. And I don't think you can trade one for the other. You can't go all security or, go all green. There's got to be somewhere in the middle to say this is the progress we can make over this period of time without risking either. So I don't know much about it other than what I heard here in a couple headlines. It's just you see it going on in the world where we're very agenda driven and we don't step back and think about the unintended consequences, or what position does it put us in terms of power or weakness. I do think it's almost this fallacy to think that because the world's more modern now that no one's coming to get you. Someone's always coming to get you. Empires rise and they fall. There's always someone that wants to be number one. You're watching Russia do it right now. It's Russia and China, all these other places, they're not going away. And I think people think because it's 2022 that the days of like big global wars and all this stuff's gone. I'm like, no, there will be another big war, right? It's do you think that the last nuclear bomb has been dropped? That in history, in the future, they'll never drop one again. On a long enough timeline, everything will happen. Someone will drop another bomb. There will be another world war. Whether it's tomorrow or 150 years from now, we don't know. And that's where I think you always have to look at, are we independent to a point when it comes to food, when it comes to our infrastructure, when it comes to our energy? There's a balance, and we can move towards building a cleaner, better environment, but at a pace where it's not sacrificing the security of our food or our energy. And I think that's what maybe you're seeing going on in Germany right now, and the protests with the farmers or whatnot. And a lot of it's good intentions, and it's just executed the wrong way. And that's my thoughts based on the very limited knowledge of that. So anyways, if you got any ideas or thoughts on episode 86, drop a comment below. I'd be curious to see what you have to say.